I always thought life had already tested me enough. Losing my husband 2 years ago had been the hardest blow, leaving me to raise my teenage daughter Emma on my own. We lived in a modest two-story house in Ohio, surrounded by memories of better days. Life was quiet, sometimes too quiet. I worked long hours at the library, often coming home exhausted, trying to balance bills, groceries, and Emma's school needs. That's when Clara came into our lives. She was recommended by a neighbor as someone reliable who could help with housework a few days a week. At first, I hesitated. Hiring a house helper felt unnecessary, maybe even indulgent. But after a few weeks of juggling late nights and falling behind, I realized I needed the support. Clara was in her early 50s, soft-spoken, with kind eyes and silver threads weaving through her dark hair. From the first day, she brought not only order but warmth into the house. Clara treated Emma like her own granddaughter. She folded laundry with care, always leaving little notes tucked into Emma's sweaters. "Have a good day at school," or "You're stronger than you think." Slowly, our house began to feel alive again, as if Clara's quiet presence had opened the windows to let light in. One evening, after I came home late, Clara lingered in the kitchen instead of leaving. She was staring at the floor, her hands twisting the dish towel nervously. I asked if something was wrong, and that's when she surprised me with her request. "Ma'am, I know I'm just your helper," she said softly, "but could I ask you for something personal? It's important." I wasn't sure what to expect. My heart tightened as I nodded. Clara explained that her son, Daniel, had been struggling. He was in his late 20s, a veteran who returned from service carrying invisible wounds. He had trouble holding steady work, and lately, he'd been distant, withdrawn. "He needs someone to believe in him," Clara said, her voice trembling. "He needs a chance. Would you consider letting him do some work around here, maybe fix things, mow the lawn, small jobs? He's good with his hands. He needs to feel useful again." I stood there quietly, her words sinking in. It wasn't what I expected. I had imagined she might ask for a loan, or maybe more hours. Instead, she was asking me to give her son purpose. I saw the desperation in her eyes, the same look I had often worn while trying to figure out how to guide Emma after her father's death. Without hesitation, I agreed. "Have him come by tomorrow," I said gently. "We'll figure something out." The next afternoon, Daniel showed up. He was tall, with shoulders slightly slouched, as if the weight of the world pressed down on him. He didn't make much eye contact at first, but he shook my hand firmly. Clara stood nearby, hopeful but nervous. Daniel started small, mowing the lawn, fixing the creaky back gate, repairing a loose stair rail. He worked with quiet precision, and slowly, the house began to reflect his touch. Emma was curious about him. She often watched from the porch, asking questions. Over time, Daniel began to answer more, sometimes even smiling faintly. One Saturday, as he was repairing the fence, Emma brought him lemonade. I overheard her telling him about her father, about how much she missed him. Daniel listened carefully, then said, "I lost some good friends too. It doesn't go away, but it gets lighter when you share it." Emma came inside afterward with tears in her eyes, telling me Daniel understood in a way no one else did. I noticed changes in Daniel too. At first, he'd keep to himself, avoiding long conversations. But soon, he'd linger after finishing work, sitting on the porch steps, talking about simple things, weather, music, even his favorite childhood memories. There was a gentleness beneath his quiet exterior, a man trying to piece his life back together. One evening, Clara stayed late again. She was making soup, humming softly, when she suddenly stopped and looked at me. "You've given my son hope," she said, wiping her eyes. "He comes home lighter now. He smiles. I don't know how to thank you." Her words humbled me. I hadn't done much, just opened a door. But sometimes that's all someone needs, an opening. Weeks turned into months. Daniel became a regular presence in our home. He fixed the leaky sink, built shelves for Emma's books, even helped repaint the living room. With every nail hammered and every brush stroke, it felt like he was repairing more than just the house. He was mending invisible cracks in all of us. Then came the day that tested everything. Daniel had been doing well, but one evening he didn't show up. Clara called me, worried. He hadn't answered her messages. Hours later, there was a knock on my door. Daniel stood there, disheveled, his eyes red. He confessed he had a hard day, memories from his service haunting him. He didn't want to burden anyone, so he had wandered the streets until he finally came to our house. Without thinking, I invited him in. Clara arrived soon after, and we all sat at the kitchen table together. Emma brought blankets, and Clara held her son's hand as he opened up about his struggles, his guilt, his fears of not being enough. I watched as Clara listened, as Emma offered him kindness beyond her years, and I realized we were no longer just a woman, her daughter, and their house helper. We were something more, a fragile but real family built on compassion. From that night forward, Daniel began attending counseling sessions, supported by both his mother and us. He found steady work with a local carpenter, slowly regaining confidence. Clara continued working at my home, but now, our conversations weren't just about chores. We spoke about life, resilience, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going. Emma thrived too, inspired by the resilience she saw in both Clara and Daniel. She joined a support group at school for students who had lost parents, and she began writing again, poems about hope, about healing. Looking back, I realized that when Clara asked me for that unexpected request, she gave me a gift as well. In opening my home to her son, I found healing for myself, for Emma, and for all of us. Life doesn't always hand us grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small, human moments, the shared meals, the mended fences, the listening ears, that we rediscover what it means to belong. And that's what followed after Clara's request. Not just help with chores, not just repairs to a house, but the quiet rebuilding of hearts.